Welcome back to Cinema Roundtable, where we do reaction videos, we discuss movies, we discuss people in the film industry. Today we are talking about Stanley Kubrick and the movie The Shining, and specifically about how Mr. Kubrick treated one of his actresses on that movie, Shelley Duvall.
The Shining ranked the 27th all-time best thriller movie by the American Film Institute, was produced and directed in 1980 by Stanley Kubrick, co-written with novelist Diane Johnson. Stanley Kubrick had lots of talents. In addition to directing and producing, he also was a photographer and screenwriter. After working for Look magazine as a photographer in the late 1940s and 50s, he began making short films on a shoestring budget. He followed this with his first major Hollywood film, The Killing, in which he collaborated with Kirk Douglas. They often got into arguments due to Mr. Kubrick's perfectionism and dislike of the Hollywood industry. He assumed control over most aspects of the filmmaking process. Kubrick was also known to be extremely open to experimentation and the ideas of others. Kubrick's films have an intense attention to detail and are thought to have innovated cinematography. Mr. Kubrick is known for his dramatic visual style and a detached, often ironic or pessimistic perspective. He used dark humor and had an intensive set design for each movie. In his personal life, he was known for his reclusive lifestyle. Prior to The Shining, Kubrick produced the movie Barry Lyndon. Moviegoers thought it dull and tedious. It was a commercial flop. Mr. Kubrick learned his lesson and acquired the rights to a popular book, The Shining.
The Shining is based on Stephen King's 1977 novel. The movie stars Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall, Scatman Crothers, and Danny Lloyd. Jack Torrance, played by Jack Nicholson, is a writer and a recovering alcoholic. He dreams of having time to write his new novel in peace and quiet. A perfect opportunity presents itself. He accepts a new position as an off-season caretaker of the Overlook Hotel. His son Danny has psychic abilities, which are called The Shining. He can talk to ghosts. His imaginary friend Tony warns Danny that the hotel is haunted. Dick Hollerman, the hotel's head chef, also has these psychic abilities. They become each other's confidant. Danny's imaginary friend Tony has a dark side, which ends up becoming very important in the movie. Wendy is warned by Tony, aka Danny, but it is too late. Snow falls at the remote hotel and communication with outside is spotty. Wendy and her son are stuck inside with Jack. Danny goes into room 237 and discovers horrors that would frighten any guest. He encounters twins who want him to play with him. They repeat their request in a somber and frightening manner. Little Danny is scared and only has his mother to protect him. As Wendy and Danny battle Jack and their own sanity, Halloran flees to get help. He returns only to be murdered by Jack. The long-dead hotel residents have a negative influence on Mr. Torrance. He begins drinking heavily. Wendy bears the brunt of an abusive Jack Torrance. She escapes with her son in a winter storm. Jack ends up freezing to death outside. In the movie, The Shining, Kubrick demanded up to 70 to 80 retakes of the same scene. Shelley Duvall, who played Wendy, bore the brunt of his controlling nature. He forced Miss Duvall to perform the exhausting baseball scene 127 times. In the Mirror article, it is stated that she had raw, bloody wounds on her hands from clutching the bat after Kubrick coldly ordered her and Nicholson to do so many retakes. Shelley stated losing her hair from the stress of being on set and being subjected to Kubrick's torture.
In a Rolling Stone article, August 27, 2023, it is stated that Kubrick's meticulous methods caused the movie to run way over schedule, forcing Duvall to spend more than a year away from her family in England. Several scene retakes caused tears from Duvall and Nicholson. Shelley Duvall is quoted as saying, "Going through day after day of excruciating work was almost unbearable." She goes on to say, Jack Nicholson's character had to be crazy and angry all the time. And in my character, I had to cry 12 hours all day long, the last 9 months straight, 5 or 6 days a week. I was there a year and a month, and there must be something to primal scream therapy, because after the day was over and I'd cried for my 12 hours, after all that work, hardly anyone even criticized my performance in it, even to mention it. It seemed like the reviews were all about Kubrick, like I wasn't even there. In the Mirror article, Shelley is quoted as saying, "All I'll really say for now is that if he hadn't directed the way he did, if he hadn't done everything with force and cruelty, then I guess it wouldn't have turned out to be as it was." Kubrick told cast to not sympathize with her. She was utterly friendless and alone during production. He forbade the other cast and crew from helping her. They were to ignore her whenever possible. In the legendary door scene, it took 3 entire days to film. Nicholson breaks his way through a bathroom door with an axe to get to Duvall. Duvall fails to escape from the tiny window and was another source of torment on the set, according to the Mirror article. Nearly 60 wooden doors were used during the shoot. Clumps of her hair had fallen out during the shoot. Shelley often felt physically sick. Kubrick told Duvall she was wasting everyone's time while filming. Duvall is said to have taken the director's abuse in stride because the movie came out good.
The bar scene with the ghostly bartender had 30 retakes. Kubrick ordered the deletion of the final scene in The Shining. It is a scene where the hotel manager visits Mrs. Torrance in a hospital. Kubrick believed it was an unnecessary scene. So, what are your thoughts on Mr. Kubrick and his treatment of Shelley Duvall?
Well, first and foremost, he is a fantastic director. I will say that everything that he did, how he treated her and tormented her, was wrong. No actor or actress, nobody in the film industry that's working to produce something that's great should be treated that way. It's not fair to them mentally, physically, any of it's just not fair. But as she said in her own words, it worked. And this isn't something to say, hey, to all the other directors out there, up and coming directors or people that are currently in the industry, to go this route, because I definitely would not suggest it. But I will say that The Shining is one of my favorite films. I've been a big fan of that, and just recently reading the book and loving that too. And the story is just fantastic, and I think Kubrick did a really good job at it. Sucks that he treated Shelley that way. It really does.
Yeah.
But the role and it also, more than that, what really sucks is that she wasn't given her flowers for that. Like, she really should have been like commended and appreciated for that role, because she did a great job. Like, I mean, honestly think she was part of the reason why that movie was so great. Like, Jack Nicholson, it's Jack Nicholson. Like, of course, he did a good job. But if she wasn't there on his side, I don't think the movie would have been as good, because she played her role perfect. And that we got what we got.
Yeah. I will say that, yeah, the movie is amazing. And because she was so raw and emotional in it, that I felt like I was rooting for her. I felt like she was somebody that I wanted to see rescued or find her way to get out on her own with her son. So I was rooting for her to like get away from this crazy, abusive, angry man who she was stuck in the hotel with. You know, it was snowing, there's no communication. And so she was on her own to try to figure this whole thing out. And I thought she was also very, capable of doing that, because she got into it. Not to just, if you haven't seen The Shining, go ahead and watch it before you watch this video. But she got into a tractor on her own in the snow and got her son out. So I think showing her emotional side with her strength really helped me as a viewer invest in her journey and invest in her getting out of that hotel. I don't think that you should abuse your actors and actresses and crew ever. There's no exception to that. Even if you're a brilliant director, brilliant writer, whoever you are on a film set, don't do it, because number one, nobody's going to want to work with somebody that does that. Unless, even if it's a good film, you're just going to be like, unless you're a masochist and we're like, oh, I'm okay with it, because the film, all it matters is the outcome of this film becoming successful. I think that Shelley was very brave to continue on doing this, but I also think that, if I were in her situation, I definitely don't know what she's thinking and feeling. I don't think I would do it. I would be like, it's not worth my sanity to keep doing this 12 hours a day, crying for a year and a half and being separated from my family. But it was her call, and it is a great film, and we have that to enjoy for however long we have on Earth. But you should never treat somebody like that. It's just not okay. Because they are just as valuable as everybody else on that set. And actors and actresses are the face of a film. If you treat them like that, it's gonna leave scars. So I don't understand why he had to do that. Even if you're a perfectionist, you should be able to treat people with kindness and value their experiences and their abilities. I do think that she is underrated as an actress. I think she was brilliant in it. She brought the humanity to her role that, even though there were other characters in it, I was more like invested in her rather than like Danny or anybody that worked at the hotel, even, or the dead residents. Like she was the one that really carried the film for me. Jack came across as a psychotic killer, honestly. And there was not a whole lot of redeeming qualities. And Danny was just a little kid. So obviously we're all going to root for him to get out of there. Kids are typically not capable of being independent and getting out and, on their own. So I know this is really long-winded, but basically I'm saying I'm agreeing with you. She should not have ever been ignored on set. She should have never been treated as if she was a second thought on the film, and never been told to do 30 retakes and cry more, or to be, harassed and bullied, or whatever it is that happened specifically on set. She should also have gotten as much credit as Stanley did, and as much credit as Jack Nicholson. So those are my final thoughts on that.
The only thing I wanted to add to that is, after finding out the information about Shelley and seeing the film and having this conversation that we're having, it's making me think that the film was like a perfect metaphor to Stanley and Shelley's relationship, with on the set. She, in the film, she's this character, she's isolated because they're in this house or this hotel all by themselves. It's just her and her family, but she's isolated from her husband because he's starting to lose it. So it's just her and her son. So she is very isolated. There's no one that's there to help her. She has to help herself, and she's dealing with this very aggressive, chaotic husband of hers. And to me, that's the relationship she had with Kubrick doing this film. He's telling everyone that's on the set, hey, don't talk to her, isolate her. So then it's like what she's dealing with in real life, she's carrying that into her role in the film. So I don't know if that was his part of the process of why he did these things. Like I want to put her in the headspace in reality that I want her to be in this film, because then at that point she is literally trapped. So if that was the method to his madness, again, not cool at all. But in that sense, then it at least makes sense. Something can make sense but not be right. You know what I'm saying? So like that, if that's what his master plan is, that does make sense, because that's exactly what you got out of her role. And none of it felt like acting. It all felt like she was being authentic. It all felt like real emotions. And I think that's what she did. She carried those emotions on from the set and how she's being treated, and she put those into her role as the wife in The Shining.
I agree with you. If that was his method, I don't know if he pre-planned it because it did say that he was open to experimentation and new ideas. I think he was so narrowly focused on each and every little task. And I don't know if he saw the big picture of like, oh, I'm gonna have her isolated and ignored. So, and also do that in real life with her. And so that translates to the film. So it's like reality and fiction are blurred and she won't be able to tell the difference, and she just is not acting anymore. She's just being herself on the set.
Mm-hmm.
The trauma and the abuse that she suffered. I don't know if he thought that far ahead or if he had that bit kind of plan in his head of what he was doing. But if he did, that's very troubling.
I agree with you.
How can we put someone through that so that they are so they can't distinguish between themselves and their relationship with you and the relationship with the fictional husband she has? That's
Yeah.
just, and to just to do that deliberately to make her sit physically ill, hair coming out of her head and crying all the time. There's just no excuse to be that abusive. There's a controversy. I'm just going to bring this in. It's not about Stanley, but there's another famous director, Lars von Trier, I think is his name. He's also known to not have a great relationship with people that act in his films. I just feel like there's in every industry you can have people that are like this.
Yeah.
But you have the choice, even if it's a great film and a great role, you have the choice to once you find out that this is this person, figure out a way to get out of your contract if it's at all possible. Or just put your foot down and say, I am going to have my family come with me and come to set and make sure that he doesn't cross any lines, because maybe she didn't feel she could because she was obligated to fulfill this role, and he's her employer. So it could be something like she wanted the role of a lifetime and she was going to put up with it because the ends justify the means.
Yeah.
But I do think that if she had been able to, because I don't know what happened, like why she wasn't doing this, if she had been able to say, I will do this role, but these are my conditions, and here's my entertainment lawyer, here's people that are like in the know and are legal team or whoever it is that she had, if she had anyone, have them come with her to the meeting and say, I will do this film, but these are my conditions. Now it could be that he'd say, no, I'm not going to do it, but I think he really wanted her because he said that she was a perfect actress for this role.
Yeah.
I think she had some leverage there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, it also makes me think of actors that will do the same thing but to themselves. I feel like there's just certain people in the industry that maybe not thinking straight or making the best choices, but from actors to directors, there's certain people that make what I guess they might consider as the ultimate sacrifice for greatness. You think of like Heath Ledger, or certain actors that will completely immerse themselves into the role, and they'll bring that into their lifestyle because they want that line to be blended. They want it to be like, okay, so I'm really going to be this character. And I feel like that's kind of what Kubrick was doing. It's like he wasn't necessarily sacrificing himself; he was sacrificing her, to get that reality, that reaction. So again, it not right even for actors that do it to themselves. It's still not right. Like it's like, I understand you want to really be this character, but it doesn't have to like come into your real life to where you're hurting yourself or whatnot, or starving yourself or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
these are things that happen.
Yeah, method acting, I don't, it's very controversial. That's when an actor and actress becomes their role 24/7. They never stop.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they want that genuine reaction when they're on set. I just feel like if you can't separate yourself from your role, how do you know your role is that character? How do you know it's not you authentically coming through? Which would alter your acting ability, with your emotive abilities. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how you could tell the difference between your genuine self and the role that you're playing, because I feel like if you've gone to the point where you're going to blur the lines and you be so-called become your fictional character, you're not that fictional character. So you're still yourself. I don't know, you're still an autonomous human being who has different likes, dislikes, values than your character, hopefully. I mean, I guess some people have the similar. So I'm not really like Jim Carrey in the Andy Kaufman one. He became an asshole because he did method acting and became so-called Andy Kaufman. And people did not like him on set, like Danny DeVito. So I don't know like if that's the best course of action, because again, this is a fictional world, and you can still act and be emotive and be in the moment and be present in that scene, in that character, and take it very seriously, and it come across as believable, and people can see you as that fictional character in that movie or show. I think that there is a way for you not to immerse yourself to the point where you don't even have your own identity anymore. There's got to be a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sad sacrifice, but I think the question also that comes to mind is, you know, can anything be as authentic as something that's authentic? Like if you literally start thinking in the way of the character, and it to a certain degree becomes a part of you, can anyone acting as that character really come off as genuine as you? Like,
Yeah, it's complicated because you think you're being that character, but you're really just being yourself playing that character.
mm-hmm.
Even if you're like doing method acting and you feel like you are that character, I just like you're acting as yourself as if you were that character. So
Yeah.
it's kind of hard for me to see like the the validity of method acting, because I just don't see that it's but I've never done it, so I don't know. And
Yeah.
this is all speculative and opinion. It's not like we're experts on this. And everybody has different ideas and opinions, so it's all are welcomed. Uh, so I just feel like in this case, Kubrick had a choice, and he chose wrong. He was his. I don't know if it's his ego, his pride that got in the way, and thought, well, I can treat anyone I want because this. What's most important is that The Shining turns out to be the best movie ever, and with the best cast. I don't know what he thought was the best route here, but if that was the case, then he really should have, would have, could have. Unfortunately, that's in the past and you can't change anything, but it would have been better if he sat down with Shelley and said, this is what you're in store for if you take on this role. Are you okay with it? And give her a heads up, and then tell Jack Nicholson and the cast, like, you know, we're not going to ignore her 24/7. It's just going to be at certain times when, she's on set. That might have been a better compromise than just making her cry all day long.
Yeah. My question would be if this was something that evolved, or if that's how it was day one on the set. Was he a nice guy and everyone talked to her and supported her in the first few months or whatnot, and then all of a sudden a light switch went off and he's like, okay, never mind, we're not going to be nice anymore.
Yeah. I have trouble thinking it's like it's he just changed overnight, because in other films he was argumentative, like with Kirk Douglas. So I think that was his personality, is to like
It's just how he
bulldoze
does
his
things.
way to get
Yeah.
it.
Thank you guys for watching and sticking with us all the way to the end on Cinema Roundtable. And we appreciate all likes, subscribes, shares, and comments. Thank you.
Thank you.